What's up, guys? In this video, I wanted to give you my thoughts on the decision of going into business for yourself or working for someone. So this is something that I had to deal with in my own life for a very long time. So I've worked for many, many different companies. I've done all kinds of work. I've done the dirtiest, lowliest work, the lowest pay work to, good manufacturing jobs where I was earning, over 1,000 a week in cash. So I've done well working for other people, and I have been in business for myself now for going on 8 years. And the decision that I actually based everything on was how I felt about working under someone else with regard to their performance, their success, and my ability to either match that or outperform that. So basically what that means is, these jobs that I had, I always felt that I had more to contribute than what I actually was. I also felt in a lot of cases that I could do a lot better than what the owners were doing. So I had these feelings inside me of discontent where it wasn't satisfying enough for me to just go to work and do what I had to do and get my money and go home and forget about everything. But rather, I thought about the business model. I thought about improving the business model and taking what it was to the next level, and all the different ways you can creatively do that. So that was one thing that, from an early point led me to believe that, my destiny was to go into business for myself. But a negative is that when you're working for yourself and you're your own employer, there's a lot more pressure than there is as far as you getting a paycheck or getting paid in cash on a weekly basis or bi-weekly. And specifically, there's no consistency with regard to the money, especially for the first few years in business. So when I'm working for someone else, regardless of how much I make, it could be, 500 a week or it can be 2,000 a week. Whatever that number is, I'm able to structure my life and my lifestyle based on that number to the point where I'm not going to constantly be under pressure in not having enough money to finance my life. It's just a matter of mathematics. This is how much I make, and then I can allocate accordingly, based on what I want and how I want to live. But, when you go into business for yourself, that's not the case. There are times where you do real well, and there are times where, you're struggling, and you endure financial hardship, and you're without money. So it's very difficult in that regard. It's tough to commit to any kind of lifestyle because there are so many ups and downs and bumps along the road, economic downturn, so many different variables that come into play. So that's one aspect of it. Another aspect that I just touched briefly on again is the pressure. I feel it's real important to talk about the pressure. When you work for somebody else, you do what you have to do, you go home, you relax, you sleep well. Whereas for me and others like me, I really don't sleep well. I stress, not that I'm worried. I'm very confident in what I do. I'm very confident in my place in life. I also know I'm very blessed. I'm very grateful for all that, I've been given. So I know moving forward that things are going to be okay. I can always manage regardless of what happens. But even still, I'm constantly computing. I'm constantly focusing my thoughts and energies on my business 24/7, on my multiple businesses, no matter what. It's not a conscious effort that I make. If I wanted to make the conscious effort, which I have tried before, it would be the opposite, in that when I go home, the workday's over, I forget about that, and I play with my family, and I enjoy my family, and I allow them what they deserve in having, a father and husband who's attentive to them and who's really there with them at that moment as they need me. But, it's very difficult to do. I don't have the ability to shut it off because it's a constant requirement. That requirement exists, that somebody continually be thinking about and planning for these business operations. If I don't do it, I will fail in my business endeavor. So I don't have a choice. I have to do it. And again, so lifestyle-wise, it's a huge, huge sacrifice to work for yourself, or to even make the attempt to dare to think to go into business for yourself is a huge thing in itself, psychologically, because you are going against the odds and you're basically rolling the dice. The positive benefit and ultimate deciding factor for most in taking those risks is, in my opinion, the possible financial windfall of becoming a success on your own versus working your way up, a labor or corporate ladder, and where that can possibly end. So there is so much more money, on the line and potentially available to you if you're successful in working for yourself. I've been successful in working for others, and regardless of how well I performed or how much I contributed, there was always a cap. They weren't going to make me a partner. They weren't going to open up the books and allow me ownership and percentage and returns with regard to business performance. It doesn't work that way. The owners in the top of that corporate ladder or manufacturing, ladder are there for a reason, because they took the risks that I'm now talking to you about, as I also did for myself. So it's basically risk versus reward. Again, I've been very blessed that I'm successful. I do well, and I'm very, very grateful for all that. But it's a constant effort. You never get to the point where it's just smooth sailing. At least not in my experience, where you could just kick back and relax and not have to constantly be engaged mentally in the business. So that hasn't been my experience. Maybe one day it will be. But again, I don't even look to that point now. I just focus on what I do on a day-to-day from a perspective of gratitude, extreme gratitude that I'm able to be where I am. I know how fortunate I am, especially with my background. But that was basically the decision and how I made it for myself. I really wasn't content just being told what to do and limiting myself in that way, whether it was through physical labor or something that did involve some intellectual effort. But, I just wasn't comfortable. I always had my own ideas. I had my own creative ways. I had my own thoughts with regard to how I can tighten things up and improve things among, a work team. So for me, the right decision was to do it, to do what I did, go into business for myself. It took a big, effort on my part just to make the decision, because everyone around me was basically, telling me how crazy it was, how impossible it was, and telling me the realities as they understood them to what I was proposing. You have no education. You didn't even go to high school. You have no business experience. You have no college. You have nothing. What the fuck do you know about going into business for yourself, about opening up and starting something completely from scratch? How the fuck do you think you're going to be able to do that? So that was the kind of mental opposition and pressure that I had to deal with only in making the decision to make the effort. So it was difficult from the beginning, but again, long term, you really need to think about it for yourself and decide, what kind of person are you? And if you believe that you're the kind of person, like I am, that would do best and would feel best and feel most satisfied and contented in your own life, in your own future, in working for yourself, then focus on that. Really give that the main priority as far as your mental efforts and planning for your future. Because the worst thing is to end up having to do something, every day for year after year, decade after decade, that you're unhappy doing. So hopefully I, gave you guys something to think about and maybe a different perspective, and I hope it benefits you guys in some way. Thanks.